But I want to ask you both, if you could have a combination of like the perfect mutual relationship between physical media and streaming, what would that maybe look like? Like if it wasn't using streaming services as they are, but if they were to do it in a way that complements each other, is there a way that could work?
What I can come up with is probably the best answer to that. Is it's a kind of an slightly expensive way of doing it, but if you can get yourself set up correctly, because it saves on time, space, and all that kind of business as far as, and that is just having like your own digital home setup system with like a couple terabytes hard drives with all your movies on them, scanned in lossless quality, and then you can go put your other movies in storage or sell them or whatever afterwards, do whatever you wish with them. But if you do sell them or get rid of them, I would suggest backing your backups with backups, just because that kind of stuff can happen. You don't know what can happen, but yeah, like that's kind of I can't remember what they're called, but like it's like basically like a home network you set up at home, and you just scan all your movies in, like literally put them in a computer and pull the files off.
So that you have the physical copy and a digital copy, essentially.
Basically, your own digital copy that you've made. But it's your own digital library, and you can actually set it up. I think it's called a Kodi or something like that. And you can set it up to where like it even looks like a streaming services and all that kind of business. That's what like Andre and a few other people do to save on space and stuff, because he doesn't have the room for all the Blu-rays and stuff. Yeah.
Me personally, yeah, if you want to do that, I'm good with the physical
But
media.
I like the physical aspect of it. I like the librie aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what I like. It takes me back to like the video store, the library stuff. Like my things with streaming is I haven't really watched a whole lot of them, so I don't really find them that good, other than like I do enjoy, like I've talked, Tom, Full Moon, Shudder. And I just watched, like I said, I just watched the Nightmares, Hollywood Dreams, and Nightmares of Robert Englund story, and that's only available right now on streaming on Screenbox.
That's on Screenbox,
yeah. Yeah, so that's a benefit to me because I wanted to see that documentary, so I just watched it there, and then I know I will buy that documentary on Blu-ray when it comes out.
Well, I mean, I guess. Or go ahead.
I'd say my biggest gripes with streaming are, number one, quality.
Yes,
it varies. And depending what you have to use to watch it with, your internet, all that kind of stuff is a variable in that. I mean, if you're somebody who just has like a little 32-inch TV that you're, in a dorm room or what have you, then whatever, you're going to be happy with whatever you can get, and that's fine, and it's going to look pretty good no matter what you're watching, especially if you got like a Roku stick or whatever.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the other problem is selection. I'm sure all of us have, you've gotten that, I want to watch this movie, and you go to look on every one of your streaming services, and not a single one has it.
Yeah. And
it just becomes all of a sudden impossible to find this movie. Everybody runs into it at least a couple times, probably a month, let alone, in their lifetime.
Yeah.
So there's that part of it too. So yeah, those are my two main gripes. And then the third one is probably the most important one. And that is that, especially if you're somebody who buys digital films, which I do from time to time, because there's movies available in HD on streaming that are only available on DVD. So sometimes if I want an upgrade in the picture, I'll get the HD version on streaming, but they can take it away at any time. Or, as we learned earlier with French Connection, edit it at any time they want.
Yep.
And a lot of those are not set up in a way you can actually download those movies, especially in the original quality. So, yeah.
So I was born in the mid-90s, and it's like, I feel like I was born in the in-between era of things where it's like things where I have the taste of some older stuff, and then also experiencing the newer stuff, like, as it's coming about. So, like, with streaming, like, I wouldn't have watched a lot of films if it wasn't for streaming. If they didn't have that option, like, how would a lot of people maybe find movies that are older, especially?
You used to have a video store.
Yeah, the video store. Yep.
Well, yeah, but I guess, I mean, it's hard to say how the world would be if there's like a
lot
of
Netflix had
around
it
still.
Yeah, it was doing it by mail for a while there, too. I mean, it's like you grew up in the DVD era. See, we grew up in the VHS boom. Mm-hmm. And the DVD era was even more juicier than the VHS boom, because we got stuff in the DVD era and quality and just amount of care given to it, and the fact that they would, carry them in a lot of bigger block video stores like Blockbuster and Movie Gallery and stuff most of the time. So, like, that was one thing. The Movie Gallery I worked with had a great DVD selection. Like almost any movie you could think of, we had it. So, you know, that was the beauty of back then. But I mean, again, it's you got to get off your butt, go out to these places, and I get it. You know,
I mean, I guess that's what I was referring to, is that because people have gotten lazier. I mean, I assume there's a lot of elements that play with that isn't just streaming that made people lazy.
Oh yeah, no, the price is a factor. Like, I mean, you know, even back then until, you know, later down the road, most DVDs were $20-$30 when they first started out. Same thing with Blu-rays, and 4Ks are still $20-$30 or more.
Yeah.
Even your standard Blu-ray and DVD for a brand new movie will cost $15 to $20 at least. In most cases, at least $20 or more. So yeah, you know, I mean, it's not a cheap thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do. I can understand streaming being very convenient, especially with a lot of the newer movies as quickly as they're coming to streaming and shit nowadays. It's like, it's a no-brainer. I catch myself often being like, I don't want to wait another month for the Blu-ray. I'll just buy it now on streaming. And then generally I'll end up putting off getting the Blu-ray unless there's a, you know, a steelbook or something, because I'm a collector, but that's it. Yeah.
I guess, like, with that, what I meant, like, you know, of course you can go to the video store to find movies, but I mean, a lot of people discover things because it gets put in their face on their phone or on their TV or something.
Well, there was various ways that would happen. You'd get to either see like a preview before another movie, or it was a movie you remember seeing a trailer for, but you never quite.
Well, I mean, like, if a new movie, like how would I like to watch an older film, like? You know, like,
it's like I just said, you
like American Psycho, like that wouldn't be in a trailer for a current movie.
Well, if you rented an older movie that you did know, for instance, from that era, maybe you would see that trailer on it and be like, oh, well, maybe I should check that out. There was that, or, you know, movies were shown a lot more on television.
Yeah.
And cable. That was basically kind of like the equivalent of streaming back then. Was you had HBO, Cinemax, Showtime, all those, and they would show a movie at nausea for a month and then switch to a couple other movies.
Yeah. We grew up in this very era, like Tom mentioned, like we had the video store, we had late night cable, we had like shows like I like to talk about a lot. We had shows like Monster Vision or Dinner and a Movie where they would play these movies repeatedly, and we could go out and we would see trailers, we'd go to the theaters. That's what, and that I try to cultivate that with my physical media collection.
Even the early years of video, if a movie was popular enough, they would re-release it a lot in theaters. Mm-hmm. And then the other side of it is, just to kind of answer your question as far as like discovery, that's just that you'd stumble upon it, you hear about it from a friend. The other thing is it wasn't as hard to keep up with most releases back then, because you didn't have nearly as many movies getting released every year as we do now. Like the average studio would release 12 to 15 movies a year as opposed to 24 to fucking plus movies.
Yeah, I kind of wish it was down to 12 again. Give me time to catch up on older things and new things at the same time.
And not only that, movies weren't released the same way back then. There was only bigger movies were generally released all at once everywhere. In fact, the first movie to ever do that was The Godfather.
You mean like in theaters everywhere? Or you
all at once, everywhere, because otherwise they were rolled out in like by cities.
Yeah, they would do blocks.
And regions. Yeah.
Like,
so like they would start in California and New York and work their way into the Midwest, basically. Mm-hmm. Chicago would sometimes get earlier screenings, in Milwaukee, but not often.
I mean, I like the idea of like theaters playing more older films here and there in a rotation. That'd be
the movies would last longer that way too, because like, you know, a movie's lifespan was 6 months to a year in some cases or more. And that was before we'd even have a chance to even think about going on cable or video, and then that got shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter over the years.
Yeah, now a movie is released in the theaters, and then not even a month later, you can go buy it on digital.